High quality conversation. Is it a lost art form? I'd say it's underrated. Eye contact and conversation. Yeah, that's the difference between really good customer service and really bad customer service. Eye contact and conversation. It's the difference between a really good date and a terrible date. Eye contact and conversation is the difference between being tolerated and being respected. Eye contact and conversation is the difference between getting an opportunity and not getting an opportunity. Eye contact and conversation, definitely the lost art form. Would you say that eye contact and conversation went downhill after these came along? The devices. Of course, I said in the previous episode that we can't blame the device, right? It's the overuse of the device, not the device itself. But of course, if you have to have your head down looking at a screen, then you're not using that muscle of looking someone in the eye to communicate. So much to the point to where you don't even have to speak at all. It's definitely one of those skills that women have in terms of being able to lure someone in. They use their eyes. But if you're looking down most of the time, you're not exercising that muscle. So you don't even know how to speak with your eyes. Though I will say in 2020, people learned how to do that. In fact, I would say that right now, people are still learning how to do that since the whole mask thing has been set back, right? So then you really have to know how to engage with your eyes. You have to be able to tell stories with them. I think people really started to understand the power in that, right? Maybe they didn't understand this before. So I guess that's if there is a positive with 2020, if there's anything positive to pull from it, that could be one of them. Because there's always the highs and the lows of any situation, right? Eye contact and conversation, the lost art form of the human experience, the ability to look someone in the eye and express or articulate yourself or your ideas. There's some people who would rather not be in position to do that. I remember once upon a time, almost everyone knew how to do this. Almost everyone knew how to do this once upon a time. Okay. Imagine being in a room and you don't have this to rely on. So you can't sit there and have your head down. You can't do that. You can't pull any entertainment in the palm of your hand. Imagine that being gone. And now you are forced to engage with this person in front of you. Maybe they're a coworker or whatever, right? So what is it that you're learning in that moment? You're learning their body language, their posture, the way they tilt their head, the way they bat their eyes, or there's certain expressions, there's certain quirks that you pick up on. Some of these things arouse you, some of them do not. But you are basically navigating through this thing called human interaction, and you're able to tell if this person is uncomfortable, turned on by you, turned off by you, wants to be cool with you, doesn't want to be cool with you. You're able to figure out all of that stuff within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, you're able to figure out all of that stuff. There are the tells, the body tells, the eye tells, the tone of voice tells, the way that a person uses their voice. Once upon a time, we knew these things. Eye contact and conversation is a lost art form, but it is the difference between being able to have a pleasant interaction or unpleasant interaction. It's the difference between being able to work out a conflict or not be able to work out a conflict. It's the difference between you developing a really good rapport with someone to the point to where you are given an opportunity that you didn't even see coming. You didn't even see that opportunity coming, but it was the tone of your voice. It was the way that you delivered. It was the way that you pitched. It was everything, your enunciation, whatever have you. Even if you're not the best orator, you basically speak and your vibration is so high that the opportunity is given to you anyway, from eye contact and conversation. I have an episode of the Strength Within series titled Energy is Everything. Energy is everything. You should look at that episode. Strength Within series. I forget what number it is, but energy is everything. But that directly connects to this lost art form of the human experience called eye contact and high quality conversation. And even if that conversation takes place for 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 5 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours. I remember a time when phone conversations used to last for 4 hours, 6 hours. Of course, that's on the phone, so it's a little different. However, there's the tone of voice, there's the auditory processing, the patience to be able to sit there and engage with someone, even if you don't necessarily like them, but you are engaging with them and you know that the moment will pass. There's an art to that. There's an art to be able to navigate with people that you don't like and people that you do like. There's an art to that. And once upon a time, almost every single person knew how to do that. They knew how to do it at the drop of a dime, once upon a time. And it didn't matter your age. It didn't matter if you were an elder. It didn't matter if you were in your 30s, your 20s, your teens, even teenagers knew how to do this. So would you say that the decline of this skill, this art form that I give it, when these came into existence, all of a sudden that art started to dwindle a little bit. But see, that's no excuse. That's no excuse. Just because we have these devices doesn't mean that we turn off the ability to communicate and have eye contact. There is absolutely no person on this earth that I cannot look in the eye and have conversation with. I don't care what their status is. I don't care how much they've achieved or not achieved. Keep in mind, this was a skill that most people had. It didn't matter what the space was. Now, of course, there's some people who are shy. Yes, you do have shy people who sort of kind of, they do this. They don't want to necessarily, give, they kind of look away. Yes, shy people have always been around, of course. But even those who had shyness had the ability to exercise the art of communication and eye contact. Because once you break through, they open up and there's a comfort, and you can establish that, especially if you're one who knows how to communicate. See, when you're forced to communicate, a whole lot of stuff comes to the surface, and you can look at 2020 as the year of forced communication, especially with relationships. People that are in these quarantines, shutdowns, being forced to communicate. And then all of a sudden they discover that the person that they're with is not necessarily the person they should be with. Or they may discover that the person that they're with is even better than they thought. When communication and eye contact happens, that's when the real action begins. That's when the real stuff begins. That's when you know if a person is solid or not. That's when you know if a person is true to themselves. You can tell so much. You don't even have to speak, because if a person looks you in your eye, you know. Now, of course, there are masters of manipulation, even with the use of this. There are people who can look you in the eye and tell you falsehoods, lead you astray, confuse your mind, lead you down a dark path. Okay? This can happen because there is an art form to what I'm talking about, right? So even those who used it for evil existed, but still there was a balance of the two. You had those who used it for evil and those who used it for good, but nonetheless, all across the board, eye contact and high quality conversation was there among strangers, people who know each other. I mean, you think your best friend started out as a stranger. We start out as strangers, and then all of a sudden you develop a rapport, you develop some energy exchange, and then you get to a comfortable place, right? Where does that come from? That comes from the ability to exchange the energy, to look someone in their face and express yourself and be confident in what you're talking about. Now, of course, today you can have a lot of information. You have access to information that will back up your statements. Of course, if I was to tell you something, you could look it up right there on the spot and say, okay, is this correct or not? Right? Even though that can be manipulated, but that's beside the point. Now you have access, so it makes the conversation that much more fuller because you can now research the data right there. So that's the beauty of today, right? But still, the ability to have information in your mind and spew it to a person as you're looking into them, to be able to not even look at that and to just tune into the person that's in front of you, listen to what it is that they're talking about and process it. That is a lost art form. But again, that's the difference between having a good moment with someone and a bad moment with someone. You could literally give so much high vibration to a person in 5 minutes based on the eye contact and the tone of your voice. Just those two things alone will make the difference in whether someone feels really good about what you have to say versus not feeling good about what you have to say. There's power in this. You can actually get a person to run through a wall for you based on the way you present the information or the sound of your voice and the eye contact, because you are investing into this other human being. That is a lost art form today, folks. The willing to invest into another human being. There are people who don't even want to. There are people who would rather talk to their dog for 24 hours than talk to another human being. And that's a whole nother discussion. We treat dogs better than children. We treat dogs better than people. I question that. I respect dogs. There's so many good things from dogs. In fact, my favorite kind of dog would be this one. However, us pushing all the benefits aside, there's something to be said of the human condition when people are choosing to communicate with dogs over communicating with human beings, especially with the surge of dog ownership that has occurred in the last 30 years. And I would even say it increased even more between 2010 and now. So this divide, this lack of interactive tissue has become so potent to the point to where people are misreading other human beings. They're misreading sarcasm for personal attacks. There's so much going on that's not being hit on. See, when you don't exercise that muscle, you can misinterpret things. You can misread things. You don't know the difference between humor and someone being serious because you're not exercising that muscle. It is a muscle that you have to work on. Looking someone in the eye, talking and listening. That is a muscle. If you don't work that muscle, you lose that ability. You lose it. Have people lost it? Have people lost the ability to do this? Is this the reason why when you put a group of people together, they're totally quiet? You put them together and they don't talk, they go to this because they don't even know how to engage. They don't know or don't trust their own ability. There's a lack of trust with themselves. They don't even trust their own power. There's a lot to be said in this because you have a power that's within you because there's two of you, not just one. There's the flesh, which is temporary. You're only borrowing these bodies to function down here. And then there's the other part of you. Check out the Strength Within series to get more info on that. But the ability to trust your abilities, the idea, I should say, of trusting your abilities to get through whatever navigation system you choose with that other human being. Whether there's a conflict or not, doesn't matter. You trust your ability to get through it. Eye contact and high quality conversation is the root. I challenge you to sharpen that if you haven't. If you haven't sharpened this ability within yourself, I challenge you to attempt to do that going forward. To look to do that. There's nothing wrong with being on this. There's nothing wrong with that. We have it. It's here. Nothing to do about. You can't erase this technology and you can't blame it. But I challenge you to exercise the ability that you have to navigate through conversations, no matter with who you're talking to, no matter what the situation is, whether a person agrees with you or not, because that's a big thing now. You have so many people who don't want to hang out with people who disagree with them. Once upon a time, that wasn't the case. A person could totally disagree with you and you would still hang with them. You wouldn't cancel them. You wouldn't befriend them. You wouldn't block them. Before all this social media stuff, you would have a group of 6 friends. 2 of them you don't really agree with all the time, but you end up knowing them for 15 to 25 years, 30 years, 40 years. Once upon a time, we knew how to do this. Human beings knew it. We can get back to that.